Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. So, I thought today we would talk about something I'm going to call World Wag III. We have a planet. Don't worry about its geometry right now, unimportant. That is packed full of world leaders that pretty much everybody hates. And it goes like this: the more powerful that a leader is right now in the world that we live in, the more incompetent and hated they are. Who is the president of the most powerful country in the entire world? An 80-year-old senile guy who's been pissing himself for the last 12 years of his life. Who has been non-functional after noon. Meaning 12 o'clock noon. Unless they know he's going to give a speech later and they keep him in bed up until an hour before the speech, and they give him coffee and drugs and make sure he can slur through what he needs to say. America has not really had a president that has not been visibly from the United States. Culturally, genetically, etc. The UK now has a leader. And, what is it with the prime ministers in the UK? They just kind of come and go like some weird substitute teacher. It's unbelievable. But for the very first time in my history that I can remember, they have a visible sort of outsider that's like, when you're not, you could be born and raised there and all that stuff, doesn't matter. If you're compromised, if your lineage goes back someplace else, you don't have a loyalty that you understand about the place that you're standing in, right? So what if I move to, from California, I moved to Massachusetts, or I moved to Spain or Germany or what have you, and I lived there for 20 years. And then I run for office over there. Well, no matter how much I want to dedicate myself to that land over there, I will not remotely match the dedication of probably a 30-year-old who has grown up there their whole life, who loves where they live, and they're not making, they're not being complacent, which is sadly all too common, right? Then there's places like China. Xi Jinping. Okay. Well, he always looks good in photographs. He always looks good when he goes out in public. I have a relative that lives over there. He loves it over there. We know that through the coup and the ridiculous procedures that they have done to keep these people inside, which obviously has nothing to do with the medicine and the problem, because that's all bullshit. I think the entire government over there, which is really the CCP, as much as they try to lie to the outside world saying, oh no, the government's a different thing, and they just happen to use this service called the Chinese Communist Party to figure out how to run the place, right? Yeah, right. Like we're all fucking idiots. I think it's just fucking hilarious that they say these stupid lines like we're all idiots. And that's sort of what I want to get to in this episode, which is we have this thing where I see memes all the time, and I've even posted them, where we say the line, oh, because they think we're stupid, and we'll show us something that's happening that's just blatantly fucking, ridiculous, right? And in the end, the meme is correct. We are stupid. Maybe not you, maybe not me, but the next of kin next to us is as dumb as a bag of hammers. And the other one is based on that foundation, right? That we have an overwhelmingly ignorant society with a lot of stupid people. Stupid people have been informed about what they should probably be cautious about. They have the IQ to digest what you're saying, and they still refuse out of a doctrine thing. I have these people in my family. Over my dead body. And it's very liberal in my family. It's like a bunch of liberal retards who are just, they literally would say, oh, this medicine's good for me. And then they have like a seizure, and they'd be like, no, it was good. It was good. It wasn't the medicine. I'm supposed to have the seizure. And that hasn't happened yet, but it will. Sure, we'll get some early strokes. But I want you to think back, because there's a few things I can do, because I'm in America, so I'm talking to a global community, and I want to make sure I keep you guys all on board. For those of you who were alive in 2001, September-ish, right? You will remember how fast this world transformed from freedom to tyranny. And the very logic of all that tyranny was one by one ridiculous and ignorant, and any culture with the fucking brain would want to get out of that situation, right? Right? So you start doing all this TSA checkpoint bullshit because a couple guys got fucking crazy, if you believe the horse shit, right? 20 fucking guys supposed to go crazy, 19, right? One couldn't get on the plane. All bullshit, right? And this results in a bunch of weird shit that has to happen to you. Taking your shoes off. Why? Because the guy was dragged on a plane by an FBI agent, sat down. He basically lit a couple shitty fireworks in his shoe, had absolutely no capability of even disrupting his chair, let alone the fuselage of the plane. When he was ushered off the plane, he was ushered off by the same FBI agent into the hands of other FBI agents, and then left with them, and, you know, you hear a story about him. So now you have to take your fucking shoes off. Carrying chemicals on an airplane. Well, like I've said several times, it was a false accusation. I was up the night that they tried to pull this bullshit. It was a plane coming in from England, from London to New York. They detained the night of, it was like more than 20 people. And it was really just passengers that stuck on this thing. And then they boiled it down to 7 bad guys, then 3 bad guys. And, you know what? None of that actually happened. They all got acquitted and they left. But what did that do? Now you can't take a fucking bottle of water from the outside world to the inside world. And if you so much as bring a normal size toothpaste container on the plane, they'll take it from you. Certain lighters they don't want you to have. What's the logic there? The logic is, well, we got to protect everybody. Do I have a pen or pencil in my hand? Because that was one of the first weapons that any intelligence agency ever came up with. Stab you in the fucking eye. Stab you in the temple. Hide all kinds of shit. And that's enough space to hide something really intense. 2 or 3 guys on a plane that buy a ticket together, man, they'll have everybody, all the flight attendants will be dead, bleeding out their fucking, temples by the time it's over. Especially if they're special forces guys who know how to handle themselves. It's all bullshit, faux security. But people fell in line, didn't they? Remember the first body scanners? The first body scanners were absolute cancer machines. The guy that sold it to us, who was our head of Homeland Security, his parents are fucking Mossad. That's fucking weird, right? So overnight, we have seen this place transform over and over and over again. The coup that just happened in 2020. Hey, you know what? What's fucking weird about it is that in January of 2020, I was eating lunch with my writing mentor in downtown Los Angeles. And then 2 months later, I wouldn't see that guy again for 2+ years. Because he got completely freaked out by it. January of 2020, I was making money. I had money coming in from clients. Oh, shit. 2 months later, I can't really effectively leave my house. If I did, there would be no reason to because everything's fucking closed. For a couple of months there, you couldn't get paper to wipe your ass. Luckily, I had a case of it. So this false sense of security that we have, that they can't just pull something out of their ass to wag the whole world, right? So just think about it. All the leaders in Europe are all, for the most part, pieces of shit, right? You might have a couple that are good, and only you would know because I don't know over there. I hear, the woman in France, she's pretty cool. England hasn't had anybody of any stature. And until 45, we didn't have anybody we could claim on this end either for the United States. We've just had one condom after another become president. No president in the United States has had any power since, well, I guess if we take Donald Trump, and we have to go back to maybe Kennedy. But again, the second you start rocking the boat, well, they rock your scalp away from your head, right? So Australia's in a bad situation. New Zealand's in a bad situation, although they're prime minister, lady, left, guarantee whoever goes in their place is not going to be somebody innocent. It won't. They'll never, ever, ever allow a non-compromised asset to run a deep state country. It just won't happen. England will never be run by anyone that doesn't bend over forward for the deep state. It's just not how the game's played. It's not how the risks are taken. You think if Trudeau ever got pushed out, that you would be allowed to have your own person in there? Without massive change, it won't happen. But I just want to, kind of get your mind thinking a little bit. And this is not to enrage you at all. This is to get you to kind of calmly sit back in your favorite chair. You put your elbow in your other fist. You put the other fist on your chin, and you just sit and you think, and you go, okay, yeah, that's some good points, and I want to think this thing through because I'm different than him, and I got my own ideas. But it's important. So say that someone came up with some wild-ass plan, and it was to take back control of our respective countries. Somehow, yeah. Even, because there's a spectrum, right? There's someone says something, and it becomes so catchy that it spreads across the minds and souls of everybody, and the world changes. I don't know if anything like that's happened for a very, very long time. I think Martin Luther King got a few in. I mean, it's very rare. It's very tough to really do it. And to do it without having the press be the only reason why the idea went through. It's just such a profound concept that it works, right? You feel me? And then, of course, the other side of the spectrum would be the reason why the United States has a Second Amendment to protect itself against tyrannical government. And, of course, the tyrannical government only acts more tyrannical when the issue of that right comes up in the United States, right? So you get these absolute sellouts on the Hill yelling and screaming about how we're not allowed to have that because they're the layer of tyranny. They are the tyranny. And, of course, they're pissed off. But so we got something going, let's just say. I'm just theoretically putting it out there so that you understand where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. And all they have to do, in my opinion, is come up with some event. And just think about it. There could be so many different events they could come up with in no time at all. They literally cut all of our balls off. I mean, we have nothing. We don't have supply chain stuff. We don't have electricity, water, which is pretty much food. What you got in your kitchen's all you got. And then it just depends on how much your neighbors want to live or die, because that's how much they're going to fight you for what you have. Remember the Twilight Zone? I've mentioned a couple times last year. The doctor that built the shelter below his house. It was just big enough for him, his wife, and his kid. And there was this message on the radio that the Russians had sent over all the missiles. And so everybody was having a birthday dinner for this dude. So they all run back to their respective homes, figure out that they don't really have what they need to survive. He's the only dude with the shelter. And here comes the bombs. And so they all end up at his basement door, begging him to get in. And of course, he can't do it. He doesn't have enough food, doesn't have space. But they all turn into animals. They get racist. They literally tear down the door. And of course, he's just horrified by what they're doing. And then just about the time they've got it all ripped apart and they've already said every horrible thing they could say to each other, the radio comes back on and says, oh, well, it's just a false alarm. And so then these guys look at him and they're like, oh, sorry, Doc, we'll take a whip round, and we'll get some money and we'll fix your door. And the doctor says the most brilliant thing. This is Rod Serling, I believe. And he says, I'm afraid all the damage has already been done, or the damage that's been done can't be repaired. And he's right. It's a really sad thing that the 17 movement ended up being complete and utter bullshit. Because it was the pacification, and it still is pacifying a ton of people. A ton of people are still believing this stuff. I'll give you an example. I was eating breakfast at a local place, got some truthers in there. And I said, wow, did you see the earthquake? in Turkey. It's kind of weird, you know. And this woman says, yeah, well, you know, they're blowing up the underground dumbs. So a lot of us think that the situation in Turkey was probably the result of some HARP weapon. Now they do have earthquakes. But HARP wants to live in a location that has natural phenomenon, and then it's a much easier process for them to stimulate the ground and shake it. That's what HARP was patented for, right? There's 3 things that HARP was patented for above all the other things it was patented for, which is mind control, weather control, and earthquakes. So those are just 3 little ones in there, right? So when you patent a device, you have to actually prove it to the patent office. That's the weird thing. So how the hell did the patent get granted in 1958 if it can't do these things? So someone's trying to tell me it's conspiracy. It's like, fuck you, dude. You tell me where the patent office gives you patents for just bullshit claims, and then, yeah, maybe it's a conspiracy. But anyway, this woman was blowing off all the suffering, and in one way or another, she was definitely feeling the pain for these people. She's not inhuman. She's blowing off the whole thing in the name of this letter movement. She turned a fucking tragedy into a fucking victory in her brain because somebody told her, 2 fucking years ago? Now it's almost 3 years ago? That all this was all good, you know? At some goddamn point, we have to be able to renegotiate our belief system. It's okay to go down a path and go, hey, well, this looks like a good idea. You know, if you were dropped off, well, shit, man, just look at the settlers in the United States. They came on the East Coast and they went west. Well, they never seen any of that land. They don't have airplanes and drones and all kinds of Google Maps stuff to see what's the best thing. They just get up every fucking day and look west and go, wow, that looks like we could probably go through that terrain. That looks like we can't go through that terrain. And imagine looking at a valley between gigantic mountains and going, oh my God, you know, we can go up a valley. But before you know it, it could seal itself off and we have to come back the other way. And it could be, you know, weeks of delay, right? That's the way the brain works. That's the way our belief systems work. We go down paths because it's making sense. Now, there's a difference between also going down a path inside your mind and going, okay, I'm giving this a chance, but deep down inside, I'm not committing to it. It's a big, big difference. As far as I know, as an example, I've always believed in God, no matter what. Even if I'm angry at God, I always believe in God. I do. And I'm not doing it because a church guilt tripped to shit on me because I barely went to church as a child. It just seemed logical. And the older I get, the more I see beautiful design. It's absolutely certain to me. So I'm committed to that belief. When various theories have come out about events like the September 2001 shape of the earth, that kind of stuff, I'll spend 30, 40, 50, 60 days considering what is initially presented to me and seems completely outrageous. I'll give it some weeks, pretending in my brain that this is, and just re-observing the world and going, well, who could that be? Oh my God, you know, that's weird. You know, yeah, it's true. I think I got proof of things, but I don't have proof of things. This idea that there's this secret army out there that's going to be coming in and saving us. Is it technically possible? Sure. It's technically possible you're in a simulator and angels and demons are going to fall down from the sky too. And it's all just non-player characters. I posted a video of a woman on in a chair with the microphone. I think it's similar to the 58 I'm using here. And she was basically saying, you know, don't worry about the outside world. Don't let people freak you out. You got to build this world around you. That's what I've been telling you guys at the end of like every episode recently, right? It's been my mantra for 5 years at least. And it's true. There's the old thing of you are what you eat. And the idea is if we keep eating these crappy narratives online, we keep reposting the news. You know, one thing I do with the Facebook group is I actually rarely post any news that's in pure news form of, a particular brand. But what I do is I get them like the most original footage I can of an earthquake, of a chemical fire, of a train derailment, without anyone saying anything, just so you can see what someone filmed. And that way, you get to make up your own mind. In case somebody says something didn't happen and you're like, dude, it's right here. Now, the best thing we could all do is I should probably make a Deep Thoughts Telegram channel. Everybody can contribute. Plus, you can immediately download without kissing Mark Zuckerberg's ass anything that's up there, from a PDF to an image to a movie, and it's just ubiquitous. It goes right to your cell phone, goes to your computer, and it's in your downloads folder, or it's on your downloads directory in your phone. I have a suspicion that what is going on right now is that you have someone trying to flip the world for Agenda 2030, which is a whole bunch of flipping. One of the big ones is obviously to poison every single human being on planet Earth. And so many people cannot conceive of that level of evil that it is unbelievable how many people are just going to eat their demise because they can't conceive of it. So we're going to lose a bunch of wonderful, gullible people. And they're just going to croak. And it's not going to be a fun croak. It's going to be a bad croak. And, there's all kinds of rumors about, cancer is like off the chain right now. If you happen to get that poison in your system. But imagine that they've always had the ability to spread that stuff via the sky, the water, food, whatever. They've always had the ability to do it, but they just don't approve of that, that drug or that whatever it is. But then they get to the point of like, okay, we now have handed out enough poison that was delivered properly, not overheated bottles that had mush in it. But now we got everyone with a single dose of what they need in order to die. And so people start dying off like crazy. Let's just say, hypothetical, right? Wag, the dog, World Wag III. Well, at that point, you can start doing things in public that you would never be allowed to do normally because you'd have a bunch of people stopping you. But if everyone is passing away, if everyone's stroking out, if everybody's, hemorrhaging somewhere, you can do whatever you want. And you don't have to even take care of people at that point. Because who cares? All y'all going to be dead real soon, right? Brazil's Lula, which again, we've had a shit ton of claims about this guy being in serious trouble with the military and all this other horse shit. Again, we've been fed so much crap, so much gaslighting. It's almost hysterical at this point. He supposedly fled the country. Well, now he's running around telling every person in Brazil, every one of you will have the poison in your system if you need government help. And in America, you might go, oh, well, that's probably just a few people with food stamps. Until you really explore Brazil, watch The Indigo Traveler, and suddenly realize everybody gets government assistance over there because the whole fucking place has been destroyed because the president 15 years ago said he's going to drill the oil off the side, off the coast, which is, according to a VP of BP, British Petroleum, Brazil has the second largest reserve of oil in the world off the coast. Scotland is the biggest one, owned by British Petroleum, and America has the one in Alaska. What'll be interesting for them, if you think about the elite that are trying to take this place over, and currently because the 17 movement was complete horseshit, because 45 has turned into a name-calling Gatling gun without really paying attention to the overwhelming agenda, I think that even if you thought it was real and you're like, oh man, it would have to be the only way that the 17 thing could even be real at this point. Okay. Which again, not showing us any signs of victory in any fucking world because, if you think a leader getting knocked out in New Zealand or Scotland is a great victory, just watch who comes in their place, right? And then you can run your mouth. You just can't change the poker game. That's the way they play. So the only way the 17 thing could be real is that they've ditched 45. Technically speaking. and they're off doing their own thing, and eventually something's going to happen. It doesn't make any sense that one small country with a bunch of renegade generals is going to beat the entire planet. The inertia of stupidity in this planet cannot be overcome by these folks. I mean, barring like almost a James Bond threat of, I have my finger on the trigger, and if you don't do what I say, I'm blowing up the world. I mean, it's like that's sort of the level of pressure that has to happen. But think about their world after this whole thing happens. What did Aaron Russo say in his last interview with Alex Jones? He was talking about his conversations with Tony Rockefeller. And he said that that guy told him everyone's going to get microchipped, and that their clan, the elite clan of the world, are going to get a KMA chip. And that stands for kiss my ass. And so wherever their chip zaps, they are the Hunger Game controllers. They can walk anywhere, go anywhere, and get anything. And that includes your daughter, your wife, or your little boy. Or you. Anything that they want, they can get. There won't be any monetary system of any level of normality that you and I are used to. Korea. The country of Korea put out a show called Squid Games. America put out a movie called Hunger Games. Stephen King did Running Man and The Long Walk, plus Rage, by the way. Right, he had a mass school shooting under his Bachman book thing before I think Columbine even happened. All predictive programming. Of course, he hates everything that's great. He hates everyone who is great. No, he doesn't look like a creeper that would do anything to anybody. No, he doesn't look like a guy that would touch little boys, does he? Oh, no, wait a minute. He looks exactly like the fucking psychopaths that do that kind of shit. I'm not saying he's done it, but, you know, hey, he always seems to fall on the side of ridiculous beliefs for a seemingly intelligent guy, right? So, you know, Hunger Games was kind of like medium level intensity. The Long Walk is a story about basically the Hunger Games formula where everybody's fucked, and the only way you're going to get anything is to get into this walk. You basically go on a marathon walk until you're the last person who's walking. And then once you're at that level, everyone else is not necessarily dead or anything, but they're all exhausted and you get a prize. But then Korea takes the Hunger Games and goes, you know, hold my beer, and comes up with the Squid Game. If you haven't seen it, it's a very disturbing, extremely well done show on Netflix. Go figure. The network that brought you Cutie Pies. And this was super intense. You fail, you die. And it was like the intensity and the competition between human beings was incredible. So it really pitted the human against the human. And inside the show, and this is the first episode, I think, you'll find out that these rich, I think they're just Americans mainly, rich white guys are just watching the whole thing from like, you know, behind the scenes. But it's all like, you know, an arena being filmed. So now I see that, very disturbing, and they're all excited they're making season 2. And then I go to my smoke lounge, I sit down, and it's sort of like some weird show. And I thought it was Japanese at first because they're famous for doing crazy game shows, right? No, I'm watching 50 people hanging from the scaffolding over warm water. It's not going to hurt anybody because this is real life. This is a real life game. And they're just going to hang there until one of them is the last person hanging. And then they win like $25,000 or something. Keeps going, keeps going. It's arenas. It is a video game in real life. All these kids are super good looking, super buff, mostly from Korea, South Korea. But there's a couple American guys in there, I believe, or maybe British or something. But this is starting to become real. You get it? It started from Stephen King's fiction. Maybe some other people had written similar things. And then it turns into the Hunger Games eventually. Then it turns into the Squid Games, which is jacking it up. And now it's on TV. Where it's an elimination process to get to a big purse of cash. Well, in Hunger Games, it was just to get out of the mix. In fact, if you look at the second episode of season 1 of Black Mirror, it's about the gentleman who was pedaling a bicycle to earn credits, and that's all he does for a living. He goes back to a little cube room, which is a bunch of LED screens that encapsulate his body, and if he doesn't want to listen to ads that are loud as shit while he sleeps in his little tiny bed, he's got to click the screen and pay to turn off the ads to shut the room up so he can just sleep okay. Can you imagine that? There's no monetary system that needs to exist that's like that because, all it is there's stuff in the world. Poor schlubs are going to make it for the people that are destroying their lives, right? And of course, their quality of life goes down, et cetera, et cetera. The rich get richer, but there won't be any need for that. I mean, if they start creating a currency between them, well, whatever. It won't matter. But the thing about that second episode of Black Mirror, the interesting thing was to understand, and Squid Games doesn't really have this. Hunger Games definitely had this. But this abstraction of you from them. Now, we don't normally see presidents of the United States in America. It's a big country. We do see the motorcade come by. I live in Los Angeles area. And I used to be in the Bay Area. I've seen Al Gore go by a bunch of times. So we see the kind of the maybe containers that they're in, but we don't actually see them physically. That's not easy to do because then someone could take a shot at them or something, right? So they got to keep that under wraps. I'm sure in London, if you live close by, you could see the Queen if you were there before she passed. But the level of abstraction that's going to take place is that these folks will be absolutely guaranteed that with 90 to 94, 97% of this planet cleaned off, I mean, these people don't exist anymore. Well, whatever's left is no big deal. Now, the one thing that is interesting is that they, technically speaking, could have a fairly decent plan for our future. Technically speaking, that could be the truth. What's weird about it is that, these scumbags like Klaus Schwab, they'll say shit like, you will own nothing and then love it. And now it's starting to catch on with other Davos people, if they had a decent plan. There's two ways they could go about this, right? Let's say that their plan is exactly what Rosa Koire was murdered for knowing. Agenda 21, a.k.a. Agenda 2030. Okay. Wipe 97% of the population away. Again, this is just using their zoning maps of the world, of human-occupied land, and the density of what populated areas are going to be allowed to have after that rearrangement. So we basically say 97% of the land in America, as well as the rest of the world, is going to be unoccupied. And of the regions that are allowed to be occupied, they won't exceed, 1 million people here, 200,000 people there, et cetera, et cetera. When you add all that up, overwhelming majority of this place is going to go away. There might be things you could do to survive. I don't know if you want to survive. I don't know. But so let's say you're down inside those cities. The big question is, what kind of people are they going to allow in those cities? I really doubt they're going to allow a bunch of assholes in those cities. Entitled punk-ass kids that are, just research nothing, know everything kids. I actually seriously doubt that. So are they going to allow people that think for themselves? Don't know. There might be a weird mezzanine between thinking for yourself, like we are, and understanding what tyranny is and getting pissed off that this all went this way. Or they break a big collection of us. And you're sitting there going, okay, well, hey, think about this. We all want to have one belief system about how this would go down. I'm not trying to condition anybody to accepting this bullshit. Trust me. I'm just trying to see ahead as to what they might be doing. And then, of course, the catalyst of this is that they could turn on a global war unlike they've ever turned on in the past, where technically speaking, they could do horrific things that have never been done before, with suffering at a level that no one can conceive, or it's all just coming out of your TV with special effects, deep fakes, and yeah, some people are getting hurt, things are happening, fires are happening, explosions happening. Most of us are actually okay, but it's causing us to all go to the government help centers, right, to get our medicine. But yeah, so you're in this mix, right? You're in this mix. Everyone's already gone. There's nothing you can do to bring them all back. You're staring at your own face in the mirror thinking, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do? There's a weird thing about humanity, and it's portrayed in movies all the time, which is this idea of sort of, again, living for at all costs, right? No matter what, keep living. Keep living. That's what God wants you to do. Keep living. And I don't know that God doesn't want us to do that, so I'm not going to try to change your mind in that realm. But there would be, in this particular scenario, a situation where you'd have to figure it out. You'd have to figure out if you're actually interested in this. But what if you go out to their world, the new world, and they've been building shit that you weren't even aware of? God knows who even built it. Maybe some robots built it. Who knows, right? It's a beautiful stainless steel world. It is the Institute in Fallout 4. Gorgeous. Where everything outside's bombed away, burned away. This place is amazing. And there's freaking androids. Human androids. Looks like replicas of, Blade Runner. Or maybe a little less. More like the Institute. If any of you look it up on YouTube, look up Fallout 4, number 4, the Institute. Just watch the videos. You'll laugh your head off. So you're sitting there looking at this going, man, I got my own room. I got fresh bed sheets and good food. And, we're maybe underground. That way we're totally protected against the elements. If you got a view outside, well, geez, you even did better than the Institute people. And they come up with tasks. They're telling you that because you've been chosen to exist after all the decimation, which means you must have some sort of intelligence that they're interested in. And it will be extremely qualified intelligence, trust me. You will really be smart in something. Over and above your fellow humans. And they've got a kind of a list of stuff you can do. It's just like we're experimenting on this. This is sort of the threshold of what we've got. But all of a sudden, the information you're looking at is like, I don't know, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 years ahead of where you were as a human being in the previous world. And on the end of like your second or third night, once you get done getting told what to do constantly, and you can actually wake up and go out and do whatever you're supposed to do and come home, you're sitting down at your bed. You're first generation, by the way. And you hear those words, you will own nothing and you will love it. Of which, by the way, the cocksuckers at Facebook say that he never said. My God, fucking video went viral, assholes. Ugh. But you're about to lay down in your bed and you're looking at your clean room. It's cleaner and more functional than any room you ever had. You just worked on futuristic technology. And it's important that you're there because you're brilliant. You're actually going to be the one that is responsible for taking it to the next level. And you climb in the sheets that you don't own, in a room you don't pay rent for, with a job that was utterly just given to you to suit your intelligence and suit your interests. And you sleep like a baby and you're like, oh my God, that son of a bitch. Why didn't he just tell us? And then you're like, oh yeah, because the rest of the world's gone. When Elon Musk comes out and says, hey, I've seen AI that'll destroy the world, and then the asshole doesn't tell you what he saw, it's either shut the fuck up, dude, or you're a fucking liar. Or talk, Just tell us what the hell you saw. If you're my best friend, man, because he says he's blown $60 billion on artificial intelligence development, systems that will craft the way the world works, right? Way the world's going to function in the future. Okay, that's great, man. Awesome. But Klaus Schwab tells you that you're going to own nothing and love it, but will not tell you how that's going to be achieved. It's a huge clue. It's a huge negative space reverse logic clue. What he's not telling you is what's most important. If he was going to create a world where your mother and your father existed and your kids can readily have babies, he'd tell you. But the reason why he doesn't is that the plan they have for their little Star Trek outfits isn't good for any of us. Good for them, but not for us. If you're seeing politicians in the world do weird things over the next, I don't know, forever, next 5 years or so, but especially in the next 24 months, where you're looking at someone's behavior, maybe like a John Kerry or somebody, and, you know, they're just saying weird shit. Bill Gates has been doing this like crazy. They're saying weird shit. And you're like, how the fuck would anybody be caught dead saying that shit? It's because they're reaching the point of fucks not given is why. They just don't care. They're looking back going, we've reached a point of no return for the civilization that's out there. And so who cares? They're still pushing the poison all over the world, which should tell you that shedding is a bunch of crap. If it was so easy to just gain a function, shed this stuff to somebody else, they would not have to do dick. What they have already pushed out there would be just good enough. Maybe, minus 30% or so that's been rumored as being delivered so poorly it didn't do anything. If you know anything about the theory of nuclear fission, then you should understand that by them continuing to push this stuff means that you're probably pretty safe from someone who actually has it. Because if one person infected every person they touched, and every single one of those people infect everybody they touched, this planet would be blood red really fast. And they wouldn't have to push anything at all. In fact, they wouldn't have had to probably tell us about some weird scamdemic except for to steal an election. That's all they would have had to have done. They have put in place, let's think about it. Let's take a World Wag III audit here. Let's say they want to start an all-out World War III. Now, it's in part will be real because, again, they want to destroy the strongest males on the planet. It reduces the physical resistance within a particular country to hold its back up. It's like taking all of the bone marrow out of a spine, and then all of a sudden you start to collapse, right? So what axes of evil do they have out there ready to go? All right. Well, they completely and utterly control North Korea. North Korea is falsely claiming it has nukes with no demonstration that they have nukes. You've only been told by liars who lie that they have nukes. Quite frankly, the same thing has been told about China. No proof China has nukes. No proof at all. Well, geez, does China lie? Oh, yeah. It's almost like they're genetic human liars, right? They steal all the intellectual property. They steal everything they possibly can. They innovate jack shit. And their country lies about everything they're doing. I mean, I know America lies about virtually everything it's doing, but China actually takes our trophy away. There's one thing they're good at. And what's odd about it is all the other surrounding Asian countries are the antithesis of China. Very straightforward, super loving, super amazing. Got some interesting things in Thailand. Japan makes some wild ass stuff. But overall, the honor is based on truth and honesty, whereas China is based on lies and deceit. It just is. So China is the other one. Although China is a big bluff, like I keep telling you, there's going to have to be a lot of coups within the United States military, especially the naval and air force, to allow Chinese forces to actually get to American soil. They could probably swing their way up to Alaska, maybe. But if Chinese citizens, Chinese military ever reach the coast of the western coast of America, it will be due to another one of these FFs like Pearl Harbor, where the two giant Navy armadas were told by Theodore Roosevelt to get out of the way, let the armada of China and Japanese get in there and bomb. And quite frankly, it's brilliant. The soldiers who are bombing don't even know, though, that their call was made to make sure that they could get there. They think they're being victorious and sneaky. It's all organized. So we have North Korea and China. What's some other ones that are in there? Well, we got the old Ukrainian problem. Biden's just playing with fire because his family's got so much dirt in there. The Podesta family's got tons of dirt in there. Europe in general, it's got the United States government's got all these biolabs there. BSL 4. They rumor drug trafficking, human trafficking. It's the same thing that Slobodan Milosevic was trying to get rid of. The KLA. I think I have that acronym right. But the gangs that were rolling over his country, trafficking kids, raping all the locals. Yet he gets caught and, sent away somewhere, probably Billionaire Island, after they tomahawked the shit out of his house. So the Ukraine's ready to pop a lot of this stuff. And again, what they always love, is the single one person, for the Franz Ferdinand that gets killed, that just turns it all on for everybody. Of course, they orchestrated for us Pearl Harbor. Boom, then we're into it. Even World War II in Europe. Poland kept persecuting the Jews in the South from the Bolsheviks. Hitler went over and said, knock it off, dude. It's not that I really give a shit about these people, but my people do, and I'm tired of, having to waste my day with complaints of what you're doing. The Polish president said, go fuck yourself. Then he goes to Stalin. Stalin says, yeah, why don't you stop fucking with those people? I'm not about to send anybody down to rumble with Germany. Second violation, second repeated request that failed from Hitler to the president of Poland. He finally just said, okay, we're going to fuck this guy up. In comes the Blitzkrieg, and the war is on. Austria easily falls. Eventually, all of Europe falls, right? And you know the rest of the story. Messing with the bear, I think, is the most legitimate thing that's out there. Because unless Putin is one of theirs, I know he has the Club of Rome up there, unless he is seriously playing the game and he is not part of the 17 movement and the soccer ball means jack shit, he's just playing a game to protect his people, fully understanding that, the people on Klaus Schwab's side can get any of the nukes that America has to fly over to Russia and absolutely decimate him. Maybe he's got some hypersonic shit up his sleeve. Remember, the video that showed the hypersonic missile taking off was pulled apart by Hollywood editors and special effects people. They erased frames, they overlapped and blended things. So you saw a load of shit if you saw that as the only thing you have out there. Now, we've seen some missiles that are coming in. They're on fucking fire. That's not normal. That means they're moving so fast the friction is creating basically, a re-entry pattern level of fire. Unlike the Apollo capsule, which of course can come in on its butt, But what would they do with South America and Africa? What do you do with those two? Well, you incite a civil war situation. You can blow up civil wars in Brazil and Argentina and Chile, probably Mexico. You could blame it on drug trafficking. You could do whatever. You could say the political leader is a bad guy. Africa, exactly the same thing. Just study the South Sudan. You have China trying to, again, like they always do, lie and cheat their way into buying all the land in Africa using their falsely inflated economy. It's so bad that no one in Africa will sell a Chinese company anything. So China is using proxy companies from Europe to buy the land, and then obviously they're handing it over to China. Now Africa's even hip to that. What really blows me away is that you have entire populations that are utterly targeted for extinction on this planet by them. I mean, I believe that we have seen proof of such a thing. The more physically perfect you are as a human being, they absolutely do not want your entire race to exist, because you'll scare Mr. David Rockefeller. But what's interesting is that you have individuals from these races inside these deep state organizations willing to sell out their entire existence. I mean, like, nothing of their entire existence will ever exist. Just remember, there used to be giants on this planet. They're gone. There used to be, pygmy races. For the most part, they're gone. There was just a decision made. There was a war. Maybe there were some other natural things that are happening. But we don't have any giants like the ones that we have the skeletons for. Yes, we do have dwarfism, which honestly matches the exact, Greek and Roman paintings of them. So it's kind of interesting. We actually still have descendants, which was a very formidable group of people. If you read the history, man, they kick some booty. The only way I see this thing going down, I mean, what I think is the trigger, I should say. Let me rephrase that. I think the trigger is this. As long as we behave and allow them to make all the tyrannical changes, we get microchipped, we get poison injected in us, which is basically you surrendering to the beast, and then you have to go talk to God about it. As long as you do those two things, nothing bad is going to happen to the world. If we resist, then mom and dad are going to throw a tantrum. They're going to start a World War III. We have seen that they can create earthquakes. We have seen that they can create tsunamis. And probably through other technologies, create hurricanes and tornadoes. Remember how I said they're going to act differently once most people are assuredly poisoned to the point of no return? Okay. Imagine something that's never happened before, outside of television or movies, where the bad guys actually say, over this public broadcast, what is it, the emergency broadcast system, the EBS system, which was always going to be a 17 thing, which is fucking hilarious. And instead of that, it's them. It's the deep state, and they simply say, they've created some massive earthquake, they've done some nasty shit, or they're about to, and they simply say, people of Earth, if you don't do this, we're going to do that. Or now that you have seen what we can do, you are to go here. And if you don't, we're going to do it again. And then, of course, you have a ton of people that are like, actually think they have a future. It's like getting in the car with Bundy and thinking things are all going to turn out, right? So, we better get over there. Oh, my gosh, Instead of riding it out in a sovereign world. By letting these people continue to hold their positions, to continue to lie at the district level where they're barely even elected, okay, all the way up to the prime ministers and presidents, by allowing them to continually push themselves in and grapple onto the walls of our banking systems, our educational systems, our military systems. We're just sitting there watching the end of our existence come into fruition. But now imagine, at the end of this whole thing, of this episode, the one thing that everybody needs to hear, we're always talking about that one thing. You could say that Martin Luther King thing that everybody's like, oh, wow, yeah. If everyone could understand it's all Wag the dog thing, that is going to be a world Wag III. We study everything that they could possibly do in every region of the world, and we spread that information. We talk it out with our relatives. What is fucking hilarious is when I'm in a smoke lounge and they'll some bullshit about North Korea testing a missile or something, right? I mean, they're shooting these little fucking toothpicks into the sky. How is it reported? North Korea fired an intercontinental ballistic missile. Oh, really? The fucking thing traveled 20 fucking miles, and they're telling me it's intercontinental? How the fuck do you know it's intercontinental? Let's see how so much fly halfway across the Pacific Ocean before it runs out of fuel. And then we'll kind of call it almost semi-continental ballistic missile. But people believe shit, right? think about and just pay attention when you bring up these subjects, how quickly people bring up complete and utter bullshit as if they've seen the fucking truth. They've seen the proof. Well, North Korea's got missiles. They got nuclear weapons. It's like, they do? Have you seen some, Jethro? Well, I'm not into conspiracy theories, It's like, oh, but you'll fucking believe all that bullshit. You'll watch PBS that's trying to prove that fucking King Arthur was a real fucking person. Right? The thing we need to spread is how this game is played, how they'll orchestrate it. But the other thing, too, is to get some conviction after the story's told, because the other thing that happens is it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a dude that's 65 and over, trust me, he or she could make a difference. They could. But they're also really tired and they're old. So if you're like 35, 25, 45, and you're talking to someone 65 and 70, it just depends on how healthy they are. If they're sitting there with a beer on their belly, they're going to have to completely change their entire world to be of any use to you. But the idea is this: the less that people panic, the less people run when the lights turned on like a bunch of roaches. Then they start dominating the place. You ever seen a bug on a wall? Like a spider on a shower wall or something like that. And the human being that's filming it is somehow filming, and they're going after it with a broom handle or some bucket or something like that. And the second that spider jumps on them, oh my God, you'll see a grown man yell like the littlest girl with the dress on. That's the ants and the grasshoppers, man. You know the saying, it's you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unhear what you've heard. It's so strong that we have something called PTSD. People are exposed to events that they can't erase easily. They can't, but they have to go find them inside their head, right? Well, what if instead of post-traumatic syndrome, it's post-truth syndrome? You've seen truth so evident, so undeniable, and so in congruent form with your reality that comes in every split second, right? Everything that's happening goes through that logic gate and goes, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. And the one that they're telling you is complete BS. Now, what I assume is going to take place is that similar to like a moon mission or something, we don't get to see. It's the inverse formula. Instead of having the Saturn V launch and go out of view and then lie about what actually took place after that moment, it's the opposite. In comes something and we don't know where it came from. A missile, a meteorite that's still a missile, something that gives that illusion. Then they make claims about where it came from. So imagine a missile that hits the western coast of the United States. What it really is some black submarine in the middle of the ocean working for the deep state, firing for all intents and purposes a United States nuke, and it comes straight in, and then they claim it's China. They claim it's North Korea. But it came locally. But everyone's going to be in such chaos, they're not going to be able to check. And sure, maybe there's a guy that was surfing off the coast of, L.A., who's got all the proof in the world. You got the video, he's got his GoPro cam, and he sees it come out of this crazy submarine. And even if he can show a few people, we're at the point of no return. So they'll just come get that guy and take him away. All of his evidence is scrapped. Or even if he can't, grab him. They'll just blow it off. They'll do what New Zealand did when they released the bogus shooting at the mosque. The video that was sort of the pretend video where all the casing shells from the gun didn't really exist, weren't hitting the ground. He wasn't trying to avoid any problems there. No one was running from him when he had the gun because it was all superimposed somehow. They told everybody in New Zealand, if you have a copy of that video, you're going to go to jail because they fucked up. Somebody leaked out the video of them about to fake this mosque shooting. And then the real shooting that, was the more production Steven Spielberg version comes out, and it's completely different. Different location, different behavior from the people. Keeping your head together for yourself and your family and your friends is the number one game. I don't really doubt any of the first degree people that have been listening for a very long time. I don't. You've earned your stripes, you know. But it's time to have a few maybe awkward conversations with people that will listen in hopes that they will see the light and spread that information. What I have done in several times is I'll say something like, so if you see this, it's probably not that. It's still dangerous. It's still something we have to pay attention to. But if you see that, it's probably this. It's probably not what you think it is. Isn't there a $2 million reward for proving that the COOF was real? To find the 35,000 plus nucleic acid chain combination that proves that this particular thing existed? Pretty sure that's right. So first it was $1 million, then it was pushed to $2 million when the guy realized it's all bullshit. And again, when is a corona level cold ever done the things to you that just happened the last 2 years? Never, ever, ever is the answer. We have to stick to our guns. I think that the smoking guns of the universe, right? We have little tiny smoking guns that basically say this: hey, I might not know who did it and why they did it. In fact, I'm not even going to try to claim I know that information. But because of this smoking gun, it's not what they say it is. That's all I'm saying. You've been lied to. Be careful, thinking that, it must be real important and they can't tell me, right? That's another big one. Oh, it must be so important they can't tell us. We want to live in a very calm world. The more truth that you know, at first, it's sort of, disheartening. You're like, oh gosh, this is kind of morbid. When you have to solve a problem and you find all of the facts, right, about what you do know, maybe not the answer of what you're looking for. And it takes a few seconds to digest what you're looking at, right? What's that? Fucking, that's weird, man. Okay. What I want to suggest as a result of this particular episode is that this causes you to pre-produce various scenarios. How you would handle it. And again, they may not need to do anything horrible. That's most definitely my wishes. But you want to pre-produce. What happens with military and scientific things like NASA organization kind of things is that if they're going to go on some mission, they build this tree, this logic gate. Well, if that's there, we go this way. If this is there, we go that way. If nothing's there, we go this way. It's all pre-produced. You know how the preppers do it, right? They kind of have a bunch of places. You can do that too if you want. My thing is, let's think about what they might be manipulating to get the results that they want, because it will add itself to the visual filter of when you take in information from the outside world, be it Telegram, some official news channel, your buddy saying something. You've already thought things through. Try to find logic gates that basically say, well, if that would happen, then this cannot have happened. If that can't happen, then this also can't happen, or this would have to be true. I know it's kind of a weird episode, but I thought this is one thing that's sort of living between the bricks of my life in conversations. And when I get into the mortar of this whole conversation, a lot of guys' eyes light up, people I'm with light up. It's not like we want any of this to be a subject matter. We should all be thinking about our dreams and not this stupid stuff. But because very incompetent, evil people exist and run the world, and somehow that's the way it's supposed to be, I guess. Sure would like to see that flipped over. We have to deal with it. Anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. We have audio, video, all of our social media sites. And again, most of them are non-censored. There is for YouTube a second channel for season 1, but BitChute and Rumble have it all up there, all in one shot. The website uses Rumble as much as possible. There's currently a store, but I want to explain, I don't make any money off of it because the jerks that run it have just upped their rates to steal all the money. I mean, it's like a freaking t-shirt. If I charged you $30 for a t-shirt, they're taking like $25 for just a regular little t-shirt. It's a highway robbery. So we're switching over to a different organization. I just haven't had a chance to move all the stuff over, and I'm going to redo a few things. To the PayPal and Patreon folks, thank you so much for hanging in there. Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you on the next Deep Thoughts. Over and out.